We are doing Walt Disney Imagineering today. This is Kristen.
Nadia.
Sanjana.
I'm going to start by introducing Walt Disney. So he was born in 1905. In 1923, him, his brother, and another cartoonist moved to Hollywood, where they set up an animation studio, and they got big success there with Steamboat Willie, and then transitioned into Mickey Mouse cartoons. So after Mickey Mouse rose to fame, Walt and his partners got the idea to open Disneyland, a theme park in Anaheim, California. This was taken place over a couple years that they developed the idea and then finally got it opened, and took $17 million. Once he saw Disneyland's success and the return on investment tenfold, he knew that he wanted to do something else. So he had an idea for Walt Disney World, but this would be altered because he died in 1966. So after Disneyland, he began to develop ideas for Epcot in the Florida Marshes, which actually stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. He originally only thought of having one community in Disney World, but his death kind of halted that. His brother Roy continued building the theme park, which opened in 1971, and he named it Walt Disney World. Imagineering started when Walt asked his team to design Disneyland. He then called Walt Disney Imagineering WED Enterprises. In 1986, the name changed to Walt Disney Imagineering because Roy didn't like WED Enterprises. Abbreviated WDI headquarters is located in California, and it is known to the employees there as Grand Central Creative Campus. Walt Disney Imagineering has many patents, trademarks, and different inventions. I'm just going to touch on two. The Fast Pass, for those of you who have never been to a Disney theme park, the Fast Pass allows you to virtually skip the line by signing in early and planning your day around hitting up a major, huge attraction like Space Mountain or Expedition Everest. So that way you can skip the line, because those rides typically have a long wait time, and you can fast pass through. And audio animatronics is bringing sounds with lights and making a grand show. So Imagineering knows no limits. Their motto is, if you can dream it, you can do it.
So the first stage of the Imagineering project is known as the blue sky phase. This is where the Imagineering team explores ideas and concepts that they think people will be interested in. Basically, the goal of the blue sky stage is to create a vision with enough detail to be able to explain, present, and sell it to others. To do this, they use blue sky speculation, where the team can generate ideas without thinking about any limitations. So this is where they put the phrase, if you can dream it, you can do it, into practice. And this usually disregards any budgetary constraints. One tool they use for brainstorming is called the Imagineering Pyramid. This is an arrangement of 15 important Imagineering principles and techniques divided into 5 tiers. The first tier is the foundations of Imagineering. This is where they focus on creating the idea and the story they want to tell their audience. The second category is called wayfinding, which is focused on navigation and guiding the audience, including how to grab their attention, how to lead them from one part of the story to another part of the story. The third tier includes techniques of visual communication. This is where they use models and visual aids to illustrate ideas and show complex subjects. The fourth category focuses on techniques to engage the audience. So this is where things like repetition and reinforcement is used to make the audience's experience memorable and engaging. The last tier, or the top of the pyramid, only has one box called plussing, also known as WALT's cardinal rule. This just means that during every step, we should constantly be improving things and asking ourselves what can be done better. So these techniques are a guide to developing a concept or an idea for the team. And no matter how crazy the idea is, the aim is to make people's dreams come true. And to do that, there has to be an innovative process. Next, we have the development phase. So after a concept is chosen, it's sent to the development phase. And the goal of this phase is to basically flesh out your vision with enough additional detail to explain what needs to be designed and built. In this phase, the Imagineering team will usually collaborate with other divisions. So going hand in hand with the development phase, we have the feasibility phase. This is where they work with other firms to develop an overall economic plan for the concept. So in this plan, they'll include a market analysis, site review, concept suitability, attendance projections, and financial projections. Now for the market analysis, they'll usually do research to identify what the target market is, and they'll analyze key demographics with quantitative and qualitative measures. So Disney knew that his brand was for people of all ages and all demographics, basically. He even himself said, "You're dead if you aim only for kids. Adults are only grown-up kids anyways." So he really wanted this to be a family brand and target mostly middle-class family, which is why he chose his initial locations as Anaheim, California, and Orlando, Florida. Next, we have the site review. So this is where potential sites are examined by the team. They look at critical factors like accessibility, visibility, marketability, etc. So they'll look at the type of space it is, how suitable it is for the attractions they want to build there, how close it is to airports and major cities. They also consider local operating environment and climate conditions. And based on this, they'll calculate visitor capacity for the site. How much of the site can they allot for the main attractions? How much do they need for parking? Where would they put the hotels? All this is decided in the site review. The next part of the plan is concept suitability. This is where research on the concept of the park in relation to the target audience is done. They would also provide improvements and suggestions to make the concept more, people-friendly. So Walt Disney's initial ideas were always seen as a little eccentric and out of the box. No one thought a theme park based on his own creations would exactly take off. So in their first feasibility study for the Anaheim, California location, they did a concept suitability portion where they did research on the audience and how many of them would consider visiting theme parks like this. The next part of the plan would provide attendance projections for the next few operating years based on the site and market information. So this would look at tourism characteristics and tourism growth based on the location. They would also look at patterns of attendance, such as how many people would visit per season, which seasons are more favorable for these specific theme parks, which day of the week even, or which time of the day even, do they see the most visitors. They'd also do an analysis of resident visitors versus out-of-town visitors. So how many local visitors are coming versus how many people from other areas are coming to the park. Lastly, we would have the financial portion of the plan. This is where they would calculate things like projected visitor expenditures, revenues, operating expenses and profits, development costs, and administrative expenses. All this would be based on things like attendance projections and site capacity. And these calculations would be sort of projected for the next few years. And based on these parts, the firms conducting these feasibility studies would come up with their own recommendations and own suggestions as to how to go about this.
The next stage after development and feasibility phase is called design stage. As an overview, this stage brings all the general information and specification from concept stage into several forms of documentation, like architectural documents. Within this stage, there are two levels that the Imagineers have to consider, which are macro level and micro level. I'm going to discuss about the macro level first, then we will look at the micro level. The first aspect of the macro level is facility design. It has to deal with the interior and exterior design of the building where the attraction will be hosted. The interior design includes the building, infrastructure, and utility systems. As we can see from the slides, Pirates of the Caribbean is one of the attractions that requires the utility systems for the water rights. Specifically, it includes the plumbing requirement. Meanwhile, the exterior design consists of landscaping and walkways. The second aspect of macro level is ride design. It is related to the design of any ride system required for the attraction, like vehicle, truck, and control system. Most of the time, the adoption of new technologies is needed. As we can see from the slides, Space Mountain is one of the attractions that requires design of computer system as a location tracker for the vehicles on the track. The last macro level is show design. It has to deal with the design of set, props, decorations, and theming. Where from this design, we could live in the storyline of attraction into reality. Example of this aspect is the Grand Hall and scenes room of Haunted Mansion. As portrayed in the image, one of the techniques used under this stage is the application of attention to detail and theming, with a purpose to strengthen the storyline together with creativity. Now I'm going to explain about 4 disciplines under the micro level. The first one is show writing, which is the written document or any required text, such as script, spells, or nomenclature of attraction. The next is the costume design. It is the process of designing characters' costume by the theoretical costume designers. Such, for example, the costume for Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War era. The third aspect is the lighting design, which is the creation of lighting effects for the show. And the fourth one is the sound design. It is the compilation of sound effects played during the attraction, queue, and pre-show. Like the one that has been played at Haunted Mansion attraction. The end result of this design stage is a collection of outputs, like the diagrams, drawings, and document. As for diagrams, one of the examples is plan. It is the object or space direct overhead view. For drawings, one of the examples is section or cross-section. It is a slice through an object or space on the drawing. For the document, one of the examples is show information guides. It is a collection of information made by the Imagineers about the story, significant details, script summary, and spells for the cast members. Following the design stage is the production phase, or also known as construction stage. During this stage, the completed design from previous stage will be transformed into a reality. In other words, the Imagineers and contractors work on transferring information into actual physical construction of the project. So there are 4 aspects need to be addressed under this production phase. Firstly, the land and facility development, which consists of physical building and rock work construction. Physical building works start from demolition and restructuring of an existing facility to a complete ground-up construction, while rock work construction focus on the natural setting of the attractions, also combined with the fantasy setting of the overall experience. As you can see on the slide, it's an image of rock work construction for Expedition Everest. Secondly, we will look at the fabrication of specialized items. It is a construction of specialized items within a large and complex project environment. Example of this aspect is a show scenes and sets, like trees and fences. As you can see on the right below of the slides, this is the completed construction of Expedition Everest. Thirdly, the production of media elements is the process of recording, editing, and assembling of the audio or video media used in the attraction. These speakers and video displays will be set up in the props and sets of the attraction. And lastly, it's about the installation of show elements. This is the process of installing a variety of show elements like the sets, props, interior and exterior decoration. Within this aspect, Imagineers use these 2 techniques. First is character pen, which is a replication method, while the second one is character plaster, which is an imitation method. Prior to the installation and operation phase, test and adjust is a critical aspect that need to be done. The outputs that the Imagineers receive from this phase will be tested to ensure the theoretical hourly rate capacity is reached. If there is any failure, adjustment will be made repeatedly until desired results will be achieved. As for example, Crush and Gusher water slide at Typhoon Lagoon is one of the attractions that require an adjustment related to the capacity of those 3 slides: Pineapple Plunger, Coconut Crusher, and Banana Blaster. Initially, all these slides can only accommodate 2 riders per rough. After testing has been made, the team members found out that the capacity can be increased to 3 riders per rough. However, Banana Blaster can only work well with 2 riders per rough. The final adjustment made for this attraction is on the attraction signage to clarify about the new capacity, which is for the Pineapple Plunger and Coconut Crusher, it works for 3 riders per rough, but for the Banana Blaster only works for 2 riders per rough.
The 6th phase is installation. Installation follows the construction and production phase. So when the attraction is physically constructed and fabricated, it's strategically placed so that way it makes sense in the parks. And within each great theme park, there are different parks like Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios. So this means that you're bringing together everything to make the attraction a success. With this installation, you think about forced perspective. So this is when you're designing the attraction, you mess with the scale to change the perception. So this picture here is an example of Main Street, USA and Magic Kingdom. And as you can see, the windows in the first story are rather large. The windows in the second story change and they're smaller, and the windows in the third story are even smaller. The same effect is in Cinderella's castle in Magic Kingdom. As you go up the castle, the windows get smaller, and the same with Expedition Everest. Readability takes into effect when you are in dark scenes often and you pass through these parts quickly, but you have to understand the scene in that quick snap. So you simplify a complex subject. So the example of this picture shown here is, if you're familiar with the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, the jail scene, you move through this part rather quickly, but it's easy to convey that the prisoners are trying to get the dog to give them the key. Kinetics is movement and motion. This brings attractions to life, from moving vehicles, signage, changes in lighting, and even flying flags. So in the picture shown here, this is on Expedition Everest. You're moving on a vehicle, and on this part of the ride, you're going upwards. But as you can see, the tracks are disarrayed at this part, and there's flags flying, and then next you will be plunging backwards for a part of the ride, and this totally changes what you think is going to happen on the ride. The It's a Small World effect is what makes a Disney attraction memorable. It's repetition and reinforcement. And if you have ever been to Disney World and on the It's a Small World ride, you know that that's also how nightmares are made, because it is so repetitive in your head, you can't forget it. Hidden Mickeys are used by Imagineers. They're placed throughout the parks, resorts, attractions, even on buses. There are hidden Mickeys that transport you between resorts and parks. So when you're looking around, hanging out in line, you will see a Mickey hidden somewhere, and you won't be able to not look at it. Like, it's there. You know it's there. Plussing is the top of the pyramid, and it is Walt Disney's own term, and it means continually asking what I can do to make this better. Plussing is all about continuous improvement and making things better and better suiting for guests, the attraction, like that. So after you install your attraction, you have an opening, which is often first a preview period, then a soft opening, and then a grand opening. After each phase, plussing occurs to improve the attraction. Oftentimes, surveys are given out to guests after they do said attraction from each period, and that way you can improve it, you can redesign the attraction, or even close the attraction and decide that this attraction isn't going to be successful.
As a conclusion, the lessons that we can learn from this Imagineering approach are the following. The first one is the importance of collective quality, where the Imagineers focus on the quality of outputs in a collective manner. In other words, the whole project team already have a clear objective about the desired result that they want to achieve at the end of every stage. The second is the importance of continuous improvement on the project process, efficiency, and the quality. For example, test and design transition phase between production and installation phase is one way the Imagineers are able to maintain the quality and efficiency of the project outputs. With the end of the lessons learned explanation, we are now finished with our presentation. Thank you for listening.